So on my first feature film, I sent it out to market and got a response from a couple distributors. One of them was a fellow named Scott Jones with a company named Artist View Entertainment. And he's a distributor I told him, you've been 30 years in the business. He's like, Jason, I've been 40 years in the business. But he was born and raised in Calgary. And he said he saw the area code on my phone number, which is written on the DVD case when I sent it out. And he's like, give this guy a call. He preferred the phone number over the movie, I think, over the content.
All right.
What was on the DVD case as opposed to the contents thereof.
Talent Talk is sponsored by Company of Rogues Actors Studio, New York-style training for actors at all stages of their journey. With our part-time classes and full-time masterclass program, Rogues provides a unique post-secondary option under the guidance of working professionals. Mentoring and developing professional film and theater artists since 1993, Calgary's longest-running independent studio offers practical hands-on classes in a positive, supportive environment. Check us out at corogues.com. Company of Rogues, passionate about the art of acting.
Hey everybody, I'm Gary McLean. You're watching Talent Talk. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, please do go to the Talent Talk YouTube channel, subscribe today. As always, the support's appreciated. And also a reminder that this and previous episodes are available on podcast mediums such as Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, just to name a few. Essentially, wherever you listen to your podcast, it's probably there. Check it out. And finally, we have sponsors. Our fifth season. Very excited about that. Need to give a shout out to them. Firstly, we have 6 Degrees Sound and Music, whose beautiful building we're in right now, and they're going to be doing our sound recording and editing. And then we have Workflow Film, who does our in-studio video recording and editing. So the camera I'm looking in right now. Hello, Workflow Film. Thank you. And then we have Company of Rogues, which is a Calgary local acting school. So thank you to them. We have Counting Coup Indigenous Film Academy. We have Heard of One Media, RJ Talent, which is a Calgary local talent agency. And finally, we have ACTRA Alberta. Thank you to those amazing sponsors for helping us out this season. Hopefully we continue doing this for at least 1 or 2 more years. So thank you. Now, today's guest, he is one of the busiest producers in Alberta right now, with approximately 17 different productions over the last 5 years, with a bunch of those currently in post-production. This guy, he started, 12 years ago, maybe 13 years ago, and he has just gone crazy. A lot of the productions, he's done numerous things, including like Hallmark Movies of the Week, all under his production company label, Polyscope Productions. So let's find out more about what this guy is, who he is, what he does, why he does it, all that kind of fun stuff. And welcome Jason Wan Lim to the show.
Well, thank you very much. For the record, Gary, I was crazy before I got into film.
You have to be to get into this industry, honestly, right? Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter what level you're doing, production, acting, you got to be crazy.
But the crazier, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what did get you? Like, what initiated that interest or path?
I was a bartender. I was a service industry guy for about 15 years. And the story I tell, which is pretty much boiled down to a soundbite at this point, is that I was probably 36 years old, 37 years old, and I was pouring drinks and would tell anybody who would listen I could do anything I set my mind to, and I had never set my mind to being, on purpose, a 40-year-old bartender. So I thought I should probably pursue something that I liked. Film had always intrigued me, and I went to film school. The irony is that as I was trying to get out of the bar industry, it turns out that it was a group of patrons that I'd served monthly for several years that ended up funding my first couple of feature films. So they helped springboard me out of the industry I was trying to get out of.
Okay.
Yeah.
So essentially, you're the producer side of Bruce Willis, is what's happening there, since he started out as bartender
as well. Yeah.
All right. I mean, you've got the haircut for it as well, so
yeah.
I mean,
usually I'm not on this side of the camera, so
Right. So this is a little bit different for you right now. And are you uncomfortable?
No.
Good.
No.
We try not to make you
The
too
camera
uncomfortable.
does something. It sucks your soul out, right? So
Yes.
It does something to you, but I'm okay with it.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. And so what was kind of your first delving into the producing side of it then, like project-wise?
I had, I'll wind up a little bit if you don't mind. You got time.
Absolutely.
You got time.
Yeah.
I had written a screenplay that I really wanted produced, and I approached this group of investors, this one particular individual who's been a business mentor and a good friend to me ever since. His name is Dave Goddard, owner, president of West Power, in case I can throw a plug out there. I'd written a script that he was going to listen to. I remember I had a table of like 25 people. We're reading every part, and there was the potential actors there, and one. We had an audience of one, and it was our Friday evening, which was the worst time to pick. He just finished a busy week at work, and as I'm reading the script to him, he falls asleep. We're performing for an audience of one, and he falls asleep. So afterwards, I was like, "Hey, did you like the script?" And he's got sleep lines on his face, and he says to me, I'll give you 40% of the money that you need to make the movie I just heard. To be fair, he didn't hear the whole thing. But he says, or I'll give you 100% of the money you need to make a movie that I deem more marketable. So I found out my producing chops pretty quickly. I remember telling him, I'm like, I'm going to need to think about that. I just wrote this thing for like 3 or 4 months. So I need to think about that. And I took about 4 steps back towards the table. And then I stopped and I turned back around. I'm like, I've thought about it. I'll do it. So I became a hack instantly.
Nice.
But I thought I'd be remiss hunting for something that was being offered to me. And I'd love to tell most filmmakers this, because in 99.9% of all cases, it's completely true. But your first couple projects are shit. So don't cling to them too much. If you're trying to get some projects under your belt, it's okay to cut your teeth on someone else's dime. It's okay to learn, and don't kill yourself too much over a project that didn't turn out as you wanted in the first place. So
Okay. Was that a feature project?
it was a feature film.
Okay.
I wanted to make an action. It was kind of a you mentioned Bruce Willis. It was kind of a Die Hard in a school, which turns out school and guns, and it was a little tricky at the time. And he wanted me to make a teen comedy. He had 2 teenage sons, and he's like, let's make something that's fun that my family could enjoy. So I started watching Porky's and American Pies and trying to acquaint myself with all of those as best I could. And then I wrote something completely awful, and he loved it. So we made it.
And what was the title of that?
I had titled it Getting In. It was later changed to American Virgins.
Oh, okay. All right.
I don't recommend watching it.
We all have that film. I have one as well. It's out there. Some people apparently enjoy it, but I'm like, I don't share it with anybody.
Yours was probably a little less racist and awful than mine was. Just for the record, I was copying a template.
Okay. All right. Did you do many shorts then, or did you just dive right into the whole feature thing and just carry on?
I did one short that turned out to be 36 minutes long. I like the narrative structure of a feature film, so I was kind of aiming towards that. And it was based on that. It was the experience of that short film that got me the investor that I did. And then I did a feature film and a whole bunch of feature films, actually. So I just started making feature films after that. Ironically, I've lately been testing the short film market a bit. Sometimes it's easier not to have to raise all the monies, and it's nice I just did a $200,000 short film we shot for 5 days. It was a Stephen King Dollar Baby project, and then we ended up getting, I'm connected and friendly with, the author of the Maze Runner series.
Oh,
and
okay.
And he's been trying to get into screenwriting himself. So he's like, I'm going to take a hand at this Dollar Baby short that he transposed into a script, and it turned out really well. So we raised a little bit of money and shot it. It was a lot of fun, actually.
For sure. When it comes to because you've already kind of mentioned a couple key components of folks you know. Mm-hmm. How do you actually go about building that network? Like, are these folks you just knew before, or
no? I've met them all on the journey. Like you mean like investors and such?
Yeah.
Like I said, my first investor was I've been serving them Lagavulin scotches once a month for a day a month for years at that point. I just didn't know that he was interested in investing in a filmmaker, which he tells me I have no interest in investing in an artist, he told me. I'll invest in a businessman, but not an artist. I was like, okay, all right. I had to hide all my artistic sensibilities.
So that's the key. Okay, I need to be a bartender first. That's where I went wrong. Okay, all right, good to know. And so from that point on, like obviously you've continued to build up these networks to a point now where, like, how many Hallmark movies have you done recently?
People kind of throw a blanket over a genre of movie. And if you make a rom-com, everybody's asking me, oh, yeah, how'd you get this Hallmark movie? I mean, I've done 2 Hallmark movies specific to the Crown Media Corporation. One was a licensed show for a group that we did out of LA. And then they approached me afterwards because they had a project that was falling apart and they needed a home for it quickly, and they approached me, and I did a show called Meet Me at Christmas with them, and it turned out that was the first self-managed show here, like Hallmark self-managed show in Alberta in something like 20 years or 17 years or something like that. So they've been gone for a while. Since then, they've done Ride. I think that series that was shot here.
Ride. I'm trying to recall that one.
Hallmark series. It just shot here. I think they're talking about season 2 now. So.
It's actually a series, not just a movie of the week kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I've done 2 Hallmark movies, and I've done maybe 3 other rom-coms that tried to pursue that structure, that formula that they do.
Right. Oh, okay. And that's, probably where some of the confusion comes in. I think I did some background on one of the ones you did. I can't remember which one it was, though. And you've worked with some other prolific actors turned producer, director in, for example, Kevin Sorbo, you worked with a couple times as well. Mm-hmm. How did that relationship kind of develop?
So on my first feature film, I sent it out to market and got a response from a couple distributors. One of them was a fellow named Scott Jones with a company named Artist View Entertainment. And he's a distributor I told him, you've been 30 years in the business. He's like, Jason, I've been 40 years in the business. But he was born and raised in Calgary. And he said he saw the area code on my phone number, which is written on the DVD case when I sent it out. And he was like, give this guy a call. He preferred the phone number over the movie, I think, over the content.
All right.
What was on the DVD case as opposed to the contents thereof. He ended up being kind of my first avenue into Hollywood, and through him I met various people, including Kevin Sorbo. So Kevin Sorbo came up here in 2018, and we shot East Texas Oil, it was called, or Miracle in East Texas. I think they just found a release for it. Like, it's happening at the end of this month, it's happening soon. I don't want to misquote a date. And then they came up here and we enjoyed each other's working relationship. And I know Kevin has a pretty strong political polarizing quality to him. I hear people that are very stoutly and animatedly opposed to him, and some that are very much for him. I can't speak to those ideologies, but I can speak to him as a professional. He's a good director. He doesn't work his crews or his actors too hard. He himself has had he's had a few health issues in the past, and so he's got to be careful on himself and his own health. So he's got to take it a little easy. So his sets they're fun, they're light, they're quick, and everyone seems to like him and get along with him very well. After that, he brought another Christian type show to us called Left Behind, which we shot at the end of 2021, and it just came out a few months ago, actually. So it did quite well. I think it did for an independent film with an independent release, 3.6 or 3.7 million US in the box office. And that was pretty quickly too. So I don't know if you've noticed, but some of those Christian films they're finding quite the audience right now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, they're just, the numbers are taking off on them. I myself, I will identify as agnostic in this respect, but they come in with real money and they make real projects and they're good to work with. I'll work with them.
And I mean, that's the business side of it, right?
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to limit your potential opportunities, right?
Of course not.
Yeah, and actually I had another guest on recently that was a big part of that film, Charles Payne.
Charles.
He spoke quite highly of it as well. And as I said to him at that time, I've definitely had some conversations with people that really seem to enjoy that film.
Charles was also in the first one.
Oh, yeah, in East Texas as well. Yeah.
His agent just asked me for some footage. So,
okay. I don't want to touch on this too much, just because it is pretty fresh in people's minds. When it comes to the current strike situation.
What strike?
There's a little thing in the U.S. right now, just tiny. It's not on the headlines at all. However, are you finding that's influencing anything that you're working on at this point?
Oh yeah, it's cut a swath through our schedule. So I had like 4 movies lined up tentatively, fairly solidly for the back half of 2023, and they've all had to pause, right, for the strike. Like, I've been talking to a group I've worked with in a good chunk in the last 2.5 years. I've done like 7 movies for them, and they want me to pick up a slate of ongoing Tubi films, and we're trying to convince them that, I mean, they make these things on the basis of like one recognizable face, and then they want that one SAG actor, but everybody else can be ACTRA. And I've been of the mind where we should maybe we can find somebody, because at the level that they're shooting them at, they're not necessarily as recognizable an actor as they might think, and they could find a Canadian equivalent. Now, I'm not sure if I'm stepping on any union toes or being a scab of any sort by saying that we should continue to make money and pay our bills in lieu of having SAG actor availability. But I think that, I'd like to try to convince them that we can shoot these, and instead of the one SAG actor they'd have, we can substitute with a just as recognizable actor.
Yeah, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, I'm not 100% clear on what the requirements are or the limitations are for Canadian productions. Obviously, if you have some sort of U.S. affiliation, whether you even be post-production, I think there's certain limitations as to for certain actors to be able to work on those projects.
Right.
But I don't know what those limitations are really.
They're quite ethical, I think.
Okay. All right. Because I know I've got one actor friend who's a Canadian actor, but he lives in LA currently, and he's been trying to maybe look for some work up here, but I don't know how transferable that is. But anyway, yeah. Like I said, I don't want to touch on that too long.
Yeah, I don't want to step on everybody's toes.
Exactly. We don't want to
go
rock the boat
unions
too much. Yes. As you've been kind of trying to develop your career a bit and everything else, have you come across any stumbling blocks that have slowed down your process at all, or have you been finding your journey so far to be relatively smooth?
I did a little fireside interview with Ampia. They asked me to come talk to some people about my experiences, and there was somebody in the audience raised their hand during the Q&A, and they're like, "What does a government need to do to get you to stay here and keep making movies?" And I honestly said, it doesn't matter what the government does. I'd made movies before it was super easy to make them, and I'm going to continue making them regardless of what they do. There are things that can help my bottom line. There's things that can, affect the stability and security of the company, but I just make content. I put my head down and I keep making it. So stumbling blocks, I don't know. It's all been a progression, and lately it's just been getting busy and busier.
Okay.
So it's been good. I don't mean to sound entitled by saying that, but I work almost ceaselessly. So I rarely turn it off, which my new girlfriend is discovering. So
yes. Well, and that's the thing, right? Because I mean, even me doing this little tiny show in comparison to what you're doing, it takes up all my free time. So to deal with the number of projects that you're dealing with right now, because you're doing how many films a year now? Right now, it seems at least 3 or 4, I would say, per year.
We did 6 features and 2 unit shoots last year and a docuseries, and then 5 the year before.
Yeah, exactly.
This year we're lined up. I think we'll probably end up with like 4 features, depending on the strike. 4 features and 2 little docuseries. So we're busy.
For sure.
As busy as we can handle. It's funny about time though, because we all have the same amount of time. It doesn't matter how big a project somebody's doing or how much gardening you have to do. It's the same amount of energy that goes into it. If you make a huge, massive, wonderful film with $100 million and you have all the money to throw it in every direction, it's still the same amount of labor goes into it, the same editing and the same, polish and sheen and audio all the way through. So like you make a tiny movie for $500,000 and you can still be stuck in the editing room for a long time dealing with the same kind of problems. So
yeah, absolutely. And have you, like, when it comes to the post-editing or post-production side of it, how involved are you on that side of it as well?
We're quite involved, and our company is it's been a slow year because of the strike, and we had a couple hiccups at the beginning of the year. But we are, so I'm segueing the fact that we were going to start up post-production specific arm because we do so much post in-house. That's been a little delayed, but we're looking at probably later on this year or the top of 2024. So we do quite a bit of post. I mean, I have 2 partners in Polyscope. One is Kyle Cooper, who's essentially my producing partner, and then I have another partner named Chris Bragg, and he does all kinds of things, but he's essentially the post-production arm of Polyscope. He's the reason why we've been able to do so much post here, and then now we work with. I mean, like the 11 features that we did here, we posted all of them here, including like from $700,000 films to $7 million. And that's something that I'm particularly good at, is convincing people that we are talented enough here and we've got the resources necessary. And I've been good at convincing people to keep their stuff here. Most of the time they shoot in Alberta and then they take it somewhere else, right, to finish. That's
right.
Generally the trend. So I've been pretty good at kind of reversing that.
Okay. And like you said, like right now, you're definitely one of the busier producers here in Alberta. Is your goal, like, would you look to transition out of Alberta, or are you thinking stay in Alberta? I know you talked a little bit when you mentioned Ampia and stuff as well, but
I've never done anything outside of Alberta. Everything I've shot has been here. I've been asked to shoot a couple things in BC, and it never quite panned out. I'm not against it. I just know this jurisdiction, and I went from being a kind of an auteur-based creative guy who would, write, direct, produce everything. And then as I moved into the service world for a little bit, I realized that the power that I had of luring people here producers here, was my knowledge of the jurisdiction. So knowing Alberta, knowing its vendors, and knowing its locations is what's important when I'm trying to convince them to shoot here. Lately, the last year or so, and I mentioned James Dashner, maybe I didn't mention him by name, but the author of The Maze Runner, that's in trying to move into more the IP generated side of things instead of service as much as I have been. I'm trying to bring back some of that, directing and some of the more hands-on creative stuff. I've met certain individuals that are like James Dashner who can lend to that. So from the IP side.
Okay.
But yeah, so long answer, but I like making work here. I wouldn't be opposed. There's a project that, if it happens, we would shoot most of it elsewhere and then shoot certain scenes here, and then I have another project that would shoot everything here and just the exteriors somewhere else. So I'm happy to travel, but I do like Alberta. I like the entrepreneurial spirit here. I like the people here.
And I'm assuming the crews as well. Yeah.
I hate the crews. The crews are the worst. No, I love the crews. The crews are great.
Yeah, right. And do you keep a fairly consistent crew then for most of your projects, or?
That all depends on what work I have to offer, right? So the current iteration, if I can wind up again for a second, the current iteration of Polyscope started forming kind of after Black Summer Season 2. I did the second season it was Netflix's first self-managed show in the province of Alberta. And I didn't love the experience of the second season. It was just so corporate and it was big and wonderful, but I was so far removed from the creative, and I had I butt heads with a couple of the individuals involved. Afterwards, I'm like, I need to concentrate on my creativity. That's what I need to do. I need to be creative. So I reached out to 3 studios / production companies that, and let them know that I was open to direct. I said, I want to direct. I want to focus on directing. I ended up directing 8 feature films inside of 2 years. Like, it was a year.
Okay.
It was too much. By the end of it, I was like, I need to step away from directing for a bit. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up yet. So, but I stepped away for a little bit, and I was like, I can't. A film to direct is very immersive, and in order to do that properly, you've got to submerge into the material. And to do that, and then wrap, and then walk onto another set, and then do it again and again and again, it's exhausting. It took quite a bit out of me. But as a result, I realized these studios I was working with, they want to make content here, and they trust us to make it. So I keep taking that content.
Okay, fair enough.
So we'll keep building that side up.
And going back to Black Summer a little bit, so you were a line producer for that.
Yeah.
And just for folks that might not be aware of the comparison between, say, a line producer and what you normally produce, what is that change, or what is that variation?
Well, on a small show, I was line producer and producer, right? And creative producer. As the larger a production gets, the more delineation is required for the separation of duties, right? There's just too many things that need to be done as a general producer, so they kind of subdivide, right? So you have your creative producer on a large show, and then the line producer is really responsible for keeping the budget on track. They can or can't. Like on season 1, I was the production manager who was also the line producer. It was my first PM gig. And it'll be my last. I didn't love it. And when we went to the second season, I was like, when Netflix came, they're like, oh yeah, you'll be the PM / line producer again. I'm like, I'll be the line producer. I'm not going to be the PM. So we had a bit of a negotiation back and forth, and then we ended up hiring somebody that I could work underneath us, and it was better. Somebody who was better equipped for that role, and I could be more set free on the creative.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have any ambition or inclination to try something else? Like, you tried the directing, you tried the producing. Do you want to be in front of the camera at all?
There was one time I was doing auditions, and I was watching everybody fail dramatically in front of the camera, just a little camera propped up in the company of rogues, actually. And I remember thinking, like, this couldn't be that hard. I knew the lines, and I sat in front of like I said, it sucks the soul right out of you. I sat in front of the camera, and all of the words fell out of my head instantly. I was like, I know these words. I fucking wrote half of them, and I couldn't get it. Like, it just drove me nuts. So there's something, it's intriguing to me, and I really respect the people who can do it well. I'd have to be pretty comfy in other aspects of my career before I'd really try to act. But I wouldn't slam the door on it, but I'll wait till there's a role that requires a half Asian, 55-year-old man, as opposed to
right.
my current self.
Is there a certain genre that you haven't done yet that you would really like to delve into? Like
pornography, for sure.
I'm surprised you didn't start there.
I would, with a last name like Wan Lim, I feel like it's my destiny to make at least a couple good action movies. Okay. Those are the ones I'd like to get into, like straight up. And we had a couple scripts that were balls out action and wild and crazy on the page. So I was looking forward to those. There was a larger one that we were trying to land this year. I may have them for next year that are straight up action films. I'd love to do some action films.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, you talking like car chase kind of things and some Jason Bourne kind of stuff?
A little bit of that. I mean, I saw that newest Mission Impossible. It was unbelievable. It was fantastic.
And is there a certain actor you'd like to work with that you haven't yet? Is that something that's crossed your mind at all?
No,
No?
not really.
Okay.
No, I mean, when you're in that casting room, that's when you start trying to figure out those positions. But unless I have a project directly in front of me, I don't really think of the actor I don't want to work with. There's a lot of good ones out there.
For sure. Yeah, it's just when you mentioned Mission Impossible, I was like, oh, Tom Cruise. Would you want to work with him? Yeah.
I don't know if the trajectory of my career is going to intersect at the right time in order to work with him. Maybe I'll work with an 82-year-old Tom Cruise.
Right? Well, I mean, you might work with The Rock. Who knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be all right. Okay. No, and we're actually kind of getting near the tail end of things, so
Sure.
I'll definitely wrap up. Current projects you're working on?
Doing a little...
That you can talk about anyway?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing a little ghost hunting series, which is kind of fun. We just did an Oprah Winfrey Network Christmas movie, so we just wrapped on that, and it was very uncreative as far as my side of things, but the script was really cute. I think it'll be a really sweet little film, but I mean, after a blast of summer Christmas, I kind of want to do something a little more creative. So yeah,
Right.
a little ghost hunting show, and then we've got a couple features that I shouldn't mention that we're trying to line up still for this year.
Okay. And do you deal with the, like, trying to find distribution side of it much?
As the service model, no. Projects come to me and they're fully financed and they're set up and ready to go, and they send me a director and a cast, and then I make it for them. I don't worry about what happens after I deliver for them. On my own personal projects, I do, but I'm just moving into that IP world right now. So yeah, not so much on the distribution side as of right now.
Okay.
Ask me that in about a year from now.
I will definitely do that.
Sure.
Yeah. And just to throw it out there, because I know you and I were talking about one of your other first projects, which was Pizza Guy. It was part of the audition request. Are you comfortable showing your butt? I think was actually one of the things.
Doesn't sound like something I'd be part of.
Because I think that one was it was a comedy as well.
It was, yeah.
And is that something you do look like, or do you try to stay away from shows that kind of do that, or
They show people's butts?
or just the whole nudity aspect of things? Or are you okay with that kind of thing?
I'm not uncomfortable with it. We were gearing up earlier this year, like in March, I think we were gearing up for a movie that was a Tubi movie called Dancers on the Dark Side. And it ended up going somewhere else, but it was about strippers. So it would have had a healthy dose of nudity in it. My only stipulation there was like, I really want to make sure that we get a female director on board so we can treat it properly.
Okay.
That was it. I mean, in that movie as well, there was a scene where there's a bare breast in it, and it was the first and only time I've been in the audition room, and they cleared it, and it's just myself and the actresses, and I was the one that was embarrassed. It wasn't them. They seemed to have no problem showing me their breast, and they think they were quite tickled by the reaction I had because my face was beet red and I had a hard time looking. But yeah, that was interesting. It was a non-sexual scene. It pops out of her night or her bathrobe as she's at the door for a pizza guy, and it starts this chain reaction that is trouble for the main character. So
Okay.
yeah.
And since there's a bit of bigger interest nowadays in, oh my goodness, why is the term escaping me? Intimacy coordinators. Is that something you've used on your sets at all?
Oh yeah.
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 And do you kind of foresee that becoming a bigger thing?
That's a good question. I mean, in the wake of Hollywood's waking, I think it's going to at least instill itself for the near future. Hopefully it remains. There's a moment in Barbie. I don't know if you've seen the new Barbie show, but
No, not yet.
It's Will Ferrell leads this ragtag group of executives, and they're talking about it's a table of men, right? It's a toy aimed at girls, and it's a table of male executives and making all the decisions. And they were talking about like, hey, isn't there feminism and equality for women? And he's like, no, we pretend that, but really it's just still us behind it. And that's really the case, but hopefully that can change, right?
Yeah.
Having the intimacy coordinator, I think, is a fantastic idea. I really do. I think it makes them more comfortable. It allows them to know the depth of the scene, and then if they know the parameters of the scene, then they can be more organic within the flow of it, right?
Okay.
They can lose themselves a little bit and know that they're not going to be exploited outside of what they're comfortable with.
Okay.
So I agree with it.
Awesome. No, fair enough.
As a producer, sometimes I'm like, fuck, we got to pay another position.
Well,
But that's just a dollar thing.
right? That's, of course.
Ethically, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. Yeah. On that note, I think we'll kind of wrap it up. I want to thank you for your time today, coming on the show.
You wrapped it up on me being cheap. Damn it. All right.
Yes.
That's fine.
So, but you put out a lot of products, right? It's about the volume, not anyway. No, that's not what it's
He was
about.
going to say quantity over quality, but we'll let him slip.
Yeah. So thanks again for your time. Do appreciate it. Thanks to the folks watching. Appreciate your time watching us as well. Tune in next week when we might have somebody else. We'll see. Maybe. I don't know. And also just a reminder to like, subscribe on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much and have a great night.